Hi everyone, I'm Hayley. I'm always in the craft room, which is a big old mess. Again, it can only mean one thing. I've been very busy and it's time to catch you up with all the details in this week's Friday Sews. I'm filming this early because I'm off for the weekend on a girls' trip and I'm super excited. And I am going to the Lake District, so I am going to try and call in on Jenny of Jenny Stitches and peruse some fabrics. I'm very excited about that. But what have I been up to this week? Well, first thing I'm going to show you is the knit top I've been working on. It is the Itch to Stitch Ulvita top, and you can see we're in various stages of pinning. My machines, whatever colour they're threaded in, that's the colour I want to sew. Anyone else like that? And when I came to start this, I wanted to overlock pretty much everything. I went to get my overlocker combs out, the navy ones, and they weren't in the drawer because they were on the cover stitch machine. And I thought, I don't want to unthread my cover stitch to thread my overlocker to complete the project, only to have to rethread the cover stitch when I'm finished to hem it. So I hemmed everything first. Kind of weird, and I wouldn't normally be able to do it, I don't think, because usually I will make a top, try it on, pin it, step back, change my mind 8 times, try shorter, longer, whatever. But this, you might recall, is a border print. It's not a border print, it's a panel print. So I knew the bottom of the flowers to be the bottom hem, and then a new panel started, which is plain navy. So I knew exactly where it was going to be hemmed anyway. So I thought, why not just hem it first thing? So that's what I did. I've hemmed front and back, and I've hemmed the little cap sleeves, which now I can't find. But I don't suppose I need to find them because you know what a hem looks like. Anyway, it's all pre-hemmed. So all I actually have to do now is put the neckband in, which I'm going to do. I'm going to sew one shoulder, then put the neckband in flat, sew the other shoulder, then put the cap sleeves in flat, and then I'll just whiz up from hem to underarm and I'm done. So if I weren't so indecisive about hem lengths, I think I would do this technique more because it's going to be so amazing to do the overlocking and then it's finished. I know logically it's exactly the same number of stitches, whatever order I do it in, but what can I say? I just hate hemming. Also, this fabric is curly, you know, curly knits. So I've pressed, steamed, clappered, and now I've clipped this neckband to try and make it as uncurly as possible. Mixed success, but anyway, I'm on with it and I'm very pleased because I didn't think I'd get to it this week, because if you watch last week's Friday Sews, you will know I'd christened this backpack week because I had backpacks galore to work on. So I should have waited after I published the last video to start on the girls' backpacks. I'll tell you what happened. I filmed last week's Friday Sews pretty late, got it up and posted at about 7:30 on Friday night, went to bed, woke up and thought, I'm just going to tackle the kids' backpacks. So the backstory is that my girls, who are twins, chose the same backpack, and that makes it annoying for packing things in the morning because I don't know whose is whose for water bottles and snacks and things. So they asked me to personalise them by sewing something on, which obviously I agreed to. Anyway, you guys had the best ideas that I did not read until after I'd struggled and finished. Because I'm silly like that. I woke up Saturday morning and just thought, I just want to get it done because I hate last minute sewing. It stresses me out so much. It takes all the fun and enjoyment out of it. Sewing on a deadline is not for me. So I woke up and thought, I'm just going to do it. But I should have read the comments first because that would have made my life a lot easier. Because so many people said, why don't you just let them buy a badge or a sticker and sew that on? Yeah, that's what I should have done. What I did instead was applique on their initials. I will insert a picture because the backpacks are now at school, so I can't show you. But yeah, it was a struggle. I had to do it on the front pocket because at the top of the bag where I would have liked to have done it, there was an internal pocket, which I would have sewn shut by doing it. I couldn't, it wasn't like a flap one where I could lift it out the way. It was all sewn down. So I had to do it on this little front pocket. It was a pain. It's not perfect. However, they loved it. In our house, we have a game we often play called Postman, where members of the family deliver and get delivered little notes from each other. And this arrived in my postbox. I hope you can see that, and I hope you can read phonics. But if you can't, it says, "Thank you for my backpack." I know, keeping that forever. And yes, it was worth all the struggles in the end because they were absolutely thrilled with them. I'm not thrilled with the neatness of the stitching, but I am thrilled that they love them. That is all that matters. Yeah, and I'm just glad it's done. The other backpack job was my backpack, which, if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you will be very familiar with because it features pretty much every week. Anyway, I'm using it for the girls' trip, which is why I had to do some quick modifications before I took it. And the first one was to secure the stitching that came undone on my holiday. So I'm going to try and not bash this around too much. Lucky for me, there's always fabric about the craft room, so if I lay this down, hopefully it won't clack all over the table. So this stitching failed on my holiday where the stitches went from webbing to fabric, just snapped. So to remedy that, I did a few things. First of all, I eliminated the problem of a stitch going from webbing to outer fabric. And I'll try and explain how I did that. So in the original pattern, they have you secure the back strap by stitching one piece of stitching across both straps. You can see here, I did two separate pieces, one for each strap, and therefore there is no stitching that goes across. I hope that makes sense. I also, thanks to my wonderful commenters, used Gutermann heavy duty thread. You will see that when I was originally sewing all this on, I just used normal sew all thread, and I actually changed the bobbin colour so that it would match the inside. I used heavy duty thread top and bottom, and gosh, this is secure. It's not as neat inside, but I'm more concerned with how it functions. And I also used stitch number 2 on my Faff Ambition 620, which is a reinforced stitch. And I had never used this stitch before. Thank you so much to the commenter who suggested it. And thank you so much also for the tip to have a practice first, because it is weird. It goes forwards 1, backwards 2, forwards 2, backwards 1. That can't be right because that doesn't add up, does it? But basically it goes backwards and forwards over the same stitch. So each stitch is really reinforced. But you really have to get into the rhythm to work out when you can turn a corner, because otherwise you turn the corner and then the first thing it does is go backwards. Yeah, it was a learning curve, but a fun one. It's one of the things I love about sewing, learning new things. And hopefully that is now super, super secure. I am only going away for a weekend, so I shouldn't have too much weight in it, but still. The other thing I did was these straps, and the first time I tried it on when I'd finished it, I twisted the strap and tried it on like that, and I was like, oh my God, I've sewed them opposite ways. But no, I haven't, phew. And what I did here was I just made it up as I went along. I made these padded, what would you even call them? Strap pads. And then when I was done with them and they were all bound, I literally just stitched through the strap to put them in place. At first, I was going to use another piece of webbing and kind of feed them through a channel. And then I thought, you know what, they'll probably just twist and annoy me. And I know I definitely need them. It's not like I'm ever going to want to slide them out the way. So I thought they'd be better just fixed. And what a difference. Oh, that's going to be so much comfier. So to make these, I used some of the outer fabric, which I had left over. And it was actually left over from my original bottom piece of the backpack. When I made this, it's the Titka Patterns large backpack. I altered the pieces to make it bigger, that way and depth. But when I did this bottom piece, I didn't take into account that I'd made it wider and taller. So the strip, while I'd made it deeper, it wasn't long enough to go all the way from zip around to zip. So I just had that hanging around, turned it into these by quilting, I use that term loosely. I basically laid a piece of the outer fabric, a piece of the stiff interfacing I got from Hobbycraft, a piece of scrap double layer jersey fabric that was left over from my clown pants, if anyone remembers the clown pants. So that is a really plush thick jersey because it's double-sided. So a layer of that, then a layer of some kind of thick linen or cotton that I used to make an apron, and then one more layer of the outer. And I literally laid all those out, did a line of stitching, and then did lines of stitching either side of that until I had a nice thick pad. And then for this binding, I was so happy. I went in the stash to look for navy binding of any description. I was contemplating using this webbing, even though I knew it wouldn't turn a corner that well. I was just kind of like, I just need this to not hurt my shoulders this weekend. But when I went in the stash, I found meters and meters and meters of bias binding, of bias strips, I should say, a bias strip that Past Hayley had cut out from a fabric remnant. Thank you, Past Hayley. I love it when that happens. I remember turning this fabric into bias strips. It was leftover lining from a coat I made. It was from John Lewis. And I wanted bias strips to make piping for a pillow I made. When you've got a remnant and then you cut a bias strip, it kind of renders the remnant a bit useless, doesn't it? Because you end up with two bits that are a weird shape and on the bias. So what I try to do whenever I cut a bias strip is turn all the remaining fabric into bias strips. And I think I must have done the continuous method, where you sew the fabric into a loop and then just keep cutting around and around and around and around. And I obviously just did the rest of the piece, and thank you me, because I was so pleased to find it such a great colour. Now, it is a lining fabric, it is polyester. It didn't want to take a press. It wasn't the easiest thing to make binding out of, but it wasn't good for anything else. So I'm so pleased to have made good use of it. And it wasn't useless. It took a limited press, and that was good enough. Good enough is good enough. That should be what we call this channel. I did the binding technique from Georgia's Portfolio's Mellow Dress Instructions, which I go on about all the time. I don't know why I'd never heard of this before, where you attach the first part of the binding to the wrong side, wrap it around, tuck, and then top stitch from the right side. So the back is already secure and you don't have to catch it. And then you never end up with any bits of binding that haven't got tucked under. I hope that makes sense. Look how neat that binding is from the front. The back, you will see in loads of places I did not catch the binding. And it doesn't matter because it's already secured down. Yay! So they were super quick to make, and then I just sewed them on. I've also shortened the straps because they were just long and dangling and in my way. And now it is ready for my weekend. The other thing I did this week is not really sewing, but it's sewing related. Do any of you use a wheelie chair in your sewing space? Do any of you have hard floors? Do any of you know what's coming next? Yeah, I flipped over my wheelie chair that was no longer wheeling, and I pulled out all the threads, and it was disgusting. There's no other word for it. Lucky for you, I took a picture. I know. Who wants to see tangled threads and human hair? Not going to lie. If you're squeamish, look away now. If you're nosy, have a good look. And if you've got a wheelie chair, flip it over and see what you can find. I like to think I'm pretty good about sweeping the floor and hoovering, because I've clogged this chair up once before, and let me tell you, it took me about 4 hours to cut all the threads free. Honestly. Mm-hmm. So this time, as soon as I felt any kind of friction in wheeling, I thought, oh, I'm just going to check if there's any threads caught, which there won't be because I'm so good at always sweeping and hoovering them up. Lies. There was loads. I didn't even do it that long ago, and there was loads. So yeah, public service announcement. If your wheelie chair's not wheeling, that's probably why. Anyway, I snipped it with a pair of embroidery scissors and then found the best thing to get them out was a quick unpick. Fair warning, those things are sharp. The wheels can spin. Exercise extreme caution. But it was much more effective than my previous attempt. Now I think about it, that's probably why it took 4 hours. But last time I was doing it with a pair of scissors and tweezers, and I just couldn't get enough traction on the tweezers to pull it all out. But with a quick unpick, it was much better. Anyway, I just thought I'd share the ups and downs of life in the craft room. It's not all fun, it's not all wins, but you know what? I did find it really, really satisfying. So here's to me and my wheelie chair and my weekend away. I will report back next week whether the stitches held. I hope to see you then. Bye.